Many environmentalists blame capitalism for the climate change crisis. Some believe the system needs to change, but others say capitalism actually saves the planet. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. When you think of environmentalists, capitalism probably doesn't cross your mind as their favorite economic model. Their favorite economic model is probably the mushroom kingdoms. Mine too, actually. Money just floats in the air and you can get even more by punching blocks. It's a perfect system. Environmentalists accuse capitalism of prioritizing profits over the planet. Most vocal environmentalists that you see in the news typically say capitalism is killing the planet and isn't compatible with sustainability. Capitalism is just about exploiting people and the environment in pursuit of profit. Capitalism aims for an endless cycle of production and consumption until all the world's limited resources are used up. Capitalism is the reason they don't make new Coke anymore. The assumption here is that the most profitable decisions will never be the most environmentally friendly or tasty, and that private owners will not make environmentally conscious decisions unless they are forced to by the government. A lot of big-name environmental activists aren't big fans of capitalism. Take Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, one of the people behind the Green New Deal.
To me, capitalism, at its core, the absolute pursuit of profit at all human, environmental, and social cost. And to me, that is not a redeemable system.
She's right. Capitalism is terrible and irredeemable. Show her you agree by buying some merchandise from the official AOC store. And what about Swedish activist Greta Thunberg? In the Climate book, Thunberg argues that leaving capitalist consumerism and market economics as the dominant stewards of the only known civilization in the universe will most likely seem, in retrospect, to have been a terrible idea. She's right. We should go back to murdering and pillaging as the primary economic model. Look, they're on a boat. It's so much more sustainable.
We are never going back to normal again, because normal was already a crisis. What we refer to as normal is an extreme system built on exploitation of people and planet. It is a system defined by colonialism, imperialism, oppression, and genocide by the so-called global north.
Like I said, murdering and pillaging. That's never led to oppression. The World Economic Forum also says they fear capitalism's impact on the environment. The WEF says capitalism has impeded effective action and doesn't help provide adequate zero-carbon policies. Without the intervention of non-market entities such as the state, international organizations, and social forces, capitalism as an economic system simply will not safeguard our planet. And it would be terrible if the environment were ruined. That ruined the view as WEF members look out the windows of all their private jets. Meanwhile, some environmental justice advocates say the only way to save the planet is to dismantle the capitalist system altogether. So, what should be put in its place? You already know my opinion. There are those like the Communist Party USA who believe real long-term solutions require environmentally conscious socialism with democratic control of the economy and economic decision-making. Well, wanting democratic control of the economy sounds like something a socialist would say regardless of whether capitalism hurts the environment. It sounds good, but then you start to think about how that would even work. Also, if you want to see how well communist societies treat the environment, just look at the Chinese Communist Party. If you can see through all the smog in China, that is. And then there are those who try to avoid using the word socialism. So they use something like post-capitalism. What is post-capitalism? The Melbourne Sustainable Society Institute, an Australian environmentalist research centre at the University of Melbourne, says post-capitalism requires the richest nations to embrace a planned process of economic degrowth. Degrowth includes purposefully reducing economic activity with less work, money, and stuff, and more self-sufficiency, simplicity, and recycling. Anything to reduce energy and resource consumption, including fewer showers, less flying, and less meat. So you'll be smelly, stuck in one place, and forced to be a vegetarian. but you'll actually enjoy it? Yep, nothing sounds more fun than giving up bacon and living like what it comes from. Even rationing key resources isn't off the table in a post-capitalist economy. And here's the thing. All these people who point out the environmental destruction in capitalist countries are right. It's gotten really bad. You thought I was a loyal capitalist pig, didn't you? Nope. I actually agree with you post-capitalist pigs. But does that mean the only way to save the planet is to get rid of capitalism? I'll get to that after the break. Welcome back. Many environmentalists see capitalism as nothing more than an exploitative system that encourages wasteful consumption and production. So obviously, if capitalism is bad, the solution must be socialism. But what you might not know, if you've never lived in a socialist or communist country, is that planned economies actually destroy the environment more than any other system. It's easy to see. Actually, technically, it's not easy to see, but you know what I mean. For example, the Soviet Union dried up the 4th largest lake in the world because they wanted to use the water for irrigation. And the Soviet Union also lost thousands of square miles of farmland to radiation because of poor safety standards. Venezuela's poor environmental standards threaten ecosystems with dirty oil, untreated sewage waste, and fertilizer runoff. One reason is that the Venezuelan government needs money from selling oil and will put that over protecting the environment. Socialists putting profit over the planet? Why, it's almost like the problem is with people and not the system. Capitalism isn't terrible, humans are. Wow, that makes me feel better and worse at the same time. Then there's China with its polluted air, undrinkable water, and toxic soil. Because of course the Chinese Communist Party puts factories ahead of people's quality of life. The point is, centralized economies don't have the environment's interests close to heart either. Do you really think the likes of Stalin, Maduro, and Xi Jinping would put the planet first? And if you protest in those countries, you'd be lucky to even see a polluted sky again. Now, many socialists would argue that those countries weren't actually being communist, but were capitalistic in their pursuit of production. This feels kind of like when couples say, yeah, every open relationship we've ever seen has failed spectacularly, but it won't when we do it. And if real communism has never been tried, what evidence do you have that it would be better for the environment than capitalism? Every country wants to increase production. The question is how to balance that with keeping the environment clean. And in many ways, capitalism actually helps increase environmental protection. It's true that developed countries tend to consume and emit carbon dioxide more than less developed ones. But capitalistic countries also have more freedom than socialist or communist countries. Multiple studies find that countries with more freedom tend to have higher environmental quality. Yale University's Environmental Performance Index finds that the top-ranking countries in environmentalism are among the wealthiest, most developed capitalist countries. There are a lot of reasons for this. For one, capitalism generates the financial resources for countries to afford more environmentally friendly infrastructure and technology. Seriously, not a lot of solar power farms in Venezuela. And it almost touches the equator. Think of the power they could generate. Also, forget the wealthiest countries. Only the wealthiest cities can afford environmentally conscious grocery stores like Whole Foods. If you want to afford the $15 organic, sustainable, and cruelty-free pineapple, you need capitalism. Green infrastructure and technology are created by entrepreneurs and innovators, motivated by profit to use up fewer resources and tap into eco-friendly demand. On top of that, well-defined and well-enforced protections of private property demand high environmental standards. Because private property protection means Bob doesn't get to build a dam that affects Fred's section of the river. If he does, Fred can sue him. Wow, who would have thought that Americans suing over everything could actually help save the planet one day? Thanks, America. Please don't sue me over making fun of you for constantly suing everybody. And if pollution happens on a large scale in a free country, people can protest. Besides, even the most economically free countries have some level of state regulation. The Nordic countries, for example, rank among the top countries in terms of economic freedom, but They also work with the EU to regulate emissions with environmentally conscious policies, such as carbon taxes. Although they're not so idealistic as to give up essential fossil fuel production, poorer countries, on the other hand, tend to have very weak environmental regulations, plus a lack of transparency, and not a Whole Foods in sight. According to the World Resources Institute, an environmental nonprofit, countries like the Philippines, Congo, and Pakistan make it very hard for citizens to obtain crucial information like statistics on air or drinking water quality. Many of the bottom performers also lacked requirements on collecting environmental information and monitoring compliance. Ultimately, it's pretty far-fetched to expect countries around the world to make moves to intentionally shrink economic activity, or to expect socialist countries to help the planet better than developed capitalist ones. The key to having good sustainability is an economic system that encourages economic growth in a way that also builds up eco-friendly technology and infrastructure, as well as a culture that encourages environmental cleanliness, like Japan. According to the Harvard Business School, the more fully a country moves to modernize its economy, institutional structures, and regulatory system, the more quickly its environment performance improves. Or in simpler terms, you want to go green? You better make green. And giving governments more power over everything is usually a bad idea, even if it's for the environment. For example, Germany is phasing out nuclear power to appease anti-nuclear environmentalists. This is despite the fact that nuclear power creates no carbon emissions. This has been labeled the world's dumbest energy policy because it crippled Germany's energy production without actually reducing carbon emissions or fixing anything, really. Without nuclear power, Germany will now be even more reliant on fossil fuels. And as we all know, nothing says environmentally conscious like importing fuel from authoritarian regimes like Russia and then burning it. They figuratively burned a lot of money when it would have been more responsible for them to literally burn that money. Even Greta wouldn't glare at them for that. It's important to modernize, and capitalism can help, but it's also important not to be dumb about it. Anyway, who says capitalism can't be green? To paraphrase Winston Churchill, capitalism is the worst economic system except for all the others, at least until we try the mushroom kingdoms. So what do you think of capitalism's impact on the environment? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. All it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Visit patreon.com/America Uncovered for more. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.